You're listening to the North Parkway Podcast, weekly talks designed to help you take the next step in your spiritual journey. You can learn more about our church at northparkway.org. And if these talks are helpful to you, consider using the link in the description to give. Your financial support helps us continue to make great content. All right, well, that's enough intro. Let's get to today's talk. In 1918, the American company Bailey Laboratories unveiled a brand new patent-pending energy drink called Radithor. Some of you guys are thinking, I didn't know energy drinks went back that far. Oh yes, right here in this country, Radithor. And it was purported to have some amazing effects. If you listen to the advertisements, they said that it stimulated your endocrine system and it produced more energy. You were more vivacious and alive. They said that it was a cure for impotence and it would give you more sex drive and a greater libido. They said that it would resolve minor aches and pains in your body and actually stimulate your body's immune system to work healthier and fix small minor things that were broken inside of you. And it was mildly popular for several years before it finally picked up when they got a pretty high-level sponsor. Now, Radithor was able to accomplish all of these things, supposedly, all of these things with just 3 simple ingredients. And they weren't secret ingredients. They were right there on the label. They were proud of these 3 ingredients. They put distilled water and 2 different isotopes of radium. Radium is in like radioactive? Oh yes. Oh yes. Radioactive water in a bottle that was going to cure all of your problems. They sold quite a few of these bottles, but they were expensive. It cost about $15 in today's equivalent money just to buy one bottle of radioactive water. In the mid-1920s, there was a trendy, popular heir to a huge fortune who was also a semi-pro golfer named Eben Byers. And Eben was riding on a train, and he was on a sleeper train. He rolled off of like the top bunk, fell on the floor, injured his arm. And he tried several different things to try to fix the arm. Nothing worked. Finally, his doctor prescribed for him Radithor. Imagine that, okay? Doctor said, drink this, you'll feel better. Well, he did drink a bottle, and he did feel better. He felt a lot better. He loved it so much, he started drinking bottles of Radithor on the regular just to stay healthy and vivacious. When he would travel around, he would tell people how great this drink is and help promote it. Over the next 5 years, he drank, on average, 3 bottles of this radioactive water a day. What could possibly go wrong? A lot, actually. A lot could go wrong. By the time he died at the age of 51, all but 2 of his teeth had fallen out. His jawbone had deteriorated so badly it became detached from his skull and had to be amputated. He had literal holes in his skull from the radiation that he kept drinking over and over again. His body was so radioactive, they had to bury him in a lead-lined tomb. And about 30 years later, scientists exhumed his body to study the effects of drinking radiation for 5 years. 30 years later, his bones were still so radioactive, they glowed in the dark. Whoa! It ended up very badly for him. And if you're like me, you're hearing the story and you're thinking, that was legal in the United States in the 1900s? Yeah, it was. But they didn't think anything of it. It was normal. That was not the only radioactive drink. The same company that made those made radioactive paperweights, radioactive clocks, radioactive cups that you could drink stuff from. It was trendy and cool for a little while until we realized it was toxic and it was killing people. Now the FDA will not allow you to put radioactive isotopes in energy drinks. So you can drink a Planet Shaker. It is safe. Okay, we like them. Today I want to talk to you about things that you may be putting into your soul that are not literally radioactive, but they're just as toxic and damaging to the spiritual part of you. And just like Radithor, it's one little sip at a time that slowly builds up, and we don't even realize it because it seems normal. I want to talk to you about the danger of things that seem normal, but they're actually killing you. And the first thing that you want to write down is something that if you're parents, you've probably said this before to your kids. You probably heard your parents say some version of this when you were growing up. We all know this up here, and yet we don't always live like it. So let's put it up on the screens. Write this down in your notes. Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's healthy. There are plenty of things that are normal that are highly unhealthy. How many are old enough to remember leaded gasoline? You remember when unleaded wasn't a thing, right? Turns out that wasn't very good for you. How many remember when you could go to the store and buy Sudafed without having to show a driver's license? Yeah. How many remember when you could spray Roundup and it didn't have like half of the front label was a warning about cancer, right? Yeah. There are plenty of stuff that used to be normal. We now realize maybe this is dangerous and we need to be careful with it. We asked you a little bit earlier, what is a product that today seems safe and is going to end up being toxic? And I got to admit, I was cheering for Cheeseheads, but you guys overwhelmingly said holding a mobile phone next to your brain. And you know what? That makes sense. If you stop and think about it, no matter how fast you're transferring data, all that data is passing right through your skull to the salad. Mate, what? Well, I mean, I'm trying to protect people from... Hey, you know what? If you had a big foam thing on your head and the phone, maybe the phone would like absorb the bad stuff, and maybe it's a safety device. Maybe the Packers were onto something. There's plenty of stuff. Here's the thing. There's plenty of stuff, and I'm going to say this. If the Lord waits long enough to return, at 200 years from now, your great-great-great-great-grandchildren, they're going to make fun of us for stuff that we did that we thought was normal, and turns out it was not healthy. It changes over time. I was talking to Dan this morning about how fashion changes over time. Some of you guys grew up when you took your socks and you scrunched them down on your ankles, and that was normal. Okay, and now you have the socks way up here, and that's normal. And if you have like dad socks that are no-shows, it's like, oh my goodness, where are your socks? Okay, normal drifts over time, and here's how it's created. Write this down in your notes. Your idea of normal is shaped one song, one show, or one story at a time. It's slowly being crafted by the environment that you're around. Your idea of normal is shaped one song, one show, or one story at a time. And we never think about normal things as being unhealthy. We just think they're normal. But in the 1920s, everybody thought that radioactive water was normal. Fizzy and delicious, right? They drank it all the time, not because they were being edgy, not because they were trying to see how close they could get to death. They were like, oh, this is good for you. It's normal. They thought it was normal. Turns out it's not healthy. Some things are normal. They're not healthy. So I decided to look at some popular influences to see if there's any unhealthy stuff lurking inside of it. And I know that for some of you guys, this whole talk is in your mind, you're like, oh man, this is going to be the like super ultra conservative Christian. But I just want to put the stuff out there and you decide what's the wise thing to do. Some of our normals are determined by music that we listen to. I'm a big music guy. I love music. I use Spotify. Some of you guys use different things. I decided to look at Spotify and see what were the 10 most popular songs this week. 10 most popular songs. I thought I would read some lyrics to you. Here's the problem. 7 out of the top 10 songs are explicit. Okay? Which means they don't have the minor cuss words. They have the really offensive ones that I'm going to choose not to say from the pulpit. So that would be sensational and weird. Pastor Chris dropped the F-bomb from the state. Not going to do that today. Nope. So I thought, let me take a few of the non-explicit ones and let's see if those are good. One of them goes like this, quote, "It goes in when you outright it. Do it really slow. Slide, baby. You a star. Strike, pose." Things you never thought you'd hear in church. Now, maybe they're talking about that exciting moment when you cut the first slice of birthday cake and you slowly slide the knife. I don't think that's what they mean. I don't think that's it. Or how about this one, okay? This is sung by a woman. Quote, "Girl, I don't need no lifted truck revving loud to pick you up, because how I look is how I touch. In this strip mall town of dreams, good luck finding a man who has the means to rhinestone cowgirl all night long." This is normal? Those are the non-explicit songs. That's normal in America. How about movies? Okay, we just had the Academy Awards, also known as a fashion show presenting to be an award ceremony. Okay, there were 10 movies nominated for Best Picture this year. 5 out of the 10 were rated R, and of those, they included a movie about taking drugs to look younger, a movie about a cartel boss who has a sex change, and the best picture, a movie about falling in love with a stripper. That's normal. That's okay. I don't know if that's very healthy. How about social media? Okay. Recent study. Listen to this, parents of teenagers. And teenagers, I'm sorry, I'm just going to present the facts, and your mom and dad can decide what to do with the facts. Recent study found that 75% of teenagers experience sex and nudity on social media. 77% view posts talking positively about drugs and alcohol, and 82% posts that are promoting violence on social media for teens. And your idea of normal is shaped one song, one show, one story at a time. That's what the surrounding culture is saying. Well, this is normal. That's, of course, man. Everybody likes a rhinestone cowgirl all night long. Fizzy and delicious. Maybe normal is not healthy. It's possible that sometimes normal is actually bad for you and nobody's talking about it. Let me show you the results of normal. Recent study in the United States. Okay, soak this in. 24% of Americans binge drink at least once a month. It's not having a few beers with the guys. It's not a glass of wine with dinner. It's getting hammered drunk at least once every month. 24% of Americans. 25% of people in this nation are at least somewhat regularly using illegal drugs to get high. 44% have already or will cheat on their spouse or their significant other. 40% of American marriages end in divorce. 78% of our citizens are living paycheck to paycheck with no savings. They're one flat tire away from broke. And 86% of us are unhappy. Study from about 2 years ago. Okay? That's the result of normal. That's what all of these things, well, this is normal. That is normal. Now, just in fairness, how many of you guys say, man, I would love to be drunk, high, depressed, divorced, broke, and unhappy? That sounds great, okay? Smack him, somebody. Sitting next to him. Erica, thank you. Okay. No, I don't want to do that. But that's normal. So here's the deal. There are times when normal becomes unhealthy. There are times when normal is actually toxic. And the Bible tells us what to do when we encounter those times. Because believe it or not, in 75 or so CE, whenever this passage was written, there were normals in that culture that were just as toxic. There were normals that were taken for granted. That's just how people live, that were just as unhealthy. It's not a new idea. And the wisdom from 2,000 years ago is still wise today. Some of you have heard this verse before. We're going to read it again. Romans 12:2. We'll put it up on the screens. The Bible says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Okay. Translation, normal is broken. Don't be normal. Don't let the world tell you what normal is, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, this is a two-step response. When you realize normal is unhealthy, this is a two-part deal. And I'm going to take you through both of those pieces because you got to do both. The first one, if you've grown up around church, this is not a new idea to you, but sometimes old school ideas should be picked back up again because they were wise. Sometimes grandma was right about stuff, and we should listen to wisdom, right? You can't just be conformed to the patterns of this world. So here's what you need to do. Write this down. You need to be picky about the values that you soak in. You need to be picky about the values that you place yourself in, about the environment, okay? Let's say you have a friend named Chad who's got a really sweet pair of shoes, and you're like, man, I'm going to go on this date. I want to impress these girls. Those are like Jordans. Dude, would you have the same size shoe? Can I borrow your shoes? He said, yeah, man, because he's a really good friend. If you get Chad's shoes, and when you're holding them at arm's length, they smell like a dead person has been rotting in a dumpster for a week, you're going to think twice about how bad you want to impress that girl. Because what's going to happen to your feet when they stay in those dumpster rotting smelling shoes for a couple hours? Your feet are going to stink really bad. You would naturally be picky about the environment that you lived in. If you went into a house and you're shopping for a new house, and you go into this house and it's like, whoo, wow, it really smells like moldy library in here. You're going to think twice about whether you want to sleep in that room and live in that room and smell all of the library moldy smell. Okay? You have to be picky about the stuff that you soak in. You got to think about it. Is this wise? Okay? The Bible says don't conform to the pattern. Eugene Peterson in the Message paraphrase words it this way, and I think I like how he says it. He says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit in without even thinking. You have to stop and think for a minute, okay? Because not everything that seems normal is healthy. Sometimes you need to stop and say, is this wise? So let me give you a couple of things to do if you take that approach. These are a very important question. Write this down. Ask yourself, what does this show or song or story, what does this depict as normal? Air quotes for podcast folks. Okay. What is this thing depicting as normal? Should I listen to this? What are the values that are at work here? Let me propose an idea to you that sometimes it's not just about blood and boobs and F-bombs. Sometimes the danger is about the value that this story is promoting and saying, this is normal. Okay? I remember when I was in college, I went to a Christian university. You were not allowed to have rated R movies on campus. They had to make an exception for Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ because obviously it's about Jesus. Okay? The Passion of the Christ is extremely violent and bloody and gory. It's not bad. It's not presenting bad values. Okay? Just saying it. There are rated G kids shows that are promoting horribly toxic values. You can't okay? And the ratings are great. I use them a lot, but you can't just say, oh, it's rated PG-13. It's fine. You got to be picky and say, wait, what is this presenting and saying, this is normal, be like this? Because that's really where the danger is. Some things, it's hard to tell, okay? So you got to be picky. You got to ask yourself, what is this thing telling me is normal? And you got to remember, sometimes it's hard to see. Sometimes it's not readily obvious. Write this down in your notes. Some toxins are invisible until you expose them to light. When you go to look, you may not know. It seems normal to me. Okay. It's not ticking off my radar. Okay. But it could still be dangerous. You need to compare to something that you know is healthy. Sometimes you can't tell which of these two things doesn't line up. Here's how you compare. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11. Have nothing to do with the worthless things that people do, things that belong to the darkness. Instead, bring them out to the light. When all things are brought out to the light, their true nature is clearly revealed. So be careful how you live. Don't live like ignorant people, but like wise people. Okay? You all know somebody who lives like an ignorant person. You don't want to be like her. You don't want to be like him. You're always, they put these posts on, look what I just bought. And you're like, you are facing bankruptcy. What are you doing? Don't be like them. Okay, be wise. Sometimes you don't know what's unhealthy until you look at what is healthy. And that's why this is a two-step process. Okay? You don't want to be normal. If normal is toxic, you don't want to live that way. You want to be different. And you need a different source of normal. So, be picky about what you put in. Part 2 is this. Write this down. You need to fill your mind with God's values. You need to populate your mind with what God said is healthy. Because here's what happens. When you know what healthy is, it's easier to see, wait a minute, this is different. This is probably unhealthy for me. The Bible gives you an interpretive lens that you can take the rest of the things that you see and your buddies' opinions on Facebook and that cool new song that they're playing on the school bus, and you can say, but does this line up with what God said is healthy? And if it doesn't, that's a good indication that maybe this is something that's going to be damaging to your soul. And I know there's this danger of saying, well, I feel like Pastor Chris is telling me to go join an Amish community and shave my mustache off and just have the chin beard thing and buy a horse and a carriage. I'm not saying that, okay? You don't need to be a monk. You just need to be mindful that some of these things may be dangerous. Best way to do it is to fill your mind with God's truth. The Bible says, don't conform to the patterns of this world, but instead, verse 2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, you probably all are thinking this, but let me just go ahead and say it anyway. You can't do this by yourself. You can't just renew your mind by yourself. You need God's work in your mind to refresh it, to renew it, to remake it. And the easiest and the fastest and the most effective way possible is the most obvious thing you're going to hear all day, but I'm going to say it anyway. Okay? Read the Bible. Read the Bible. God didn't just give it to us so that we had a list of rules. He gave it to us so it can shape what we feel is normal. So that we can see examples of when people live this way, bad things turn out. But when Jesus said, when you handle it this way, your Father in heaven is pleased with you. You got to read the Bible. Or, and I know for some of you guys reading it, okay? Or listen to the Bible. I love the Bible app. We talk about it a lot because there are really fantastic translations. You can press the play arrow on your phone and just listen, and a really good narrator will read the Bible to you. Still works the same. You said, man, I have a hard time paying attention. My mind is just all over the place, okay? Then watch the Bible. Did you know on the Bible app, you can go to the video tab and you can, okay, Lumo Project, you can watch verse by verse the whole gospel of Luke or Mark or John. You watch it like a TV show and it's literally, okay, not even The Chosen, it's literally word for word the whole Bible. But you need that stuff, okay? I told you about how broken normal is in America. Listen to this. For people, recent study, for people who read the Bible 15 minutes a day, 4 times a week. Okay? In case you're not real fast with math, that's 1 hour a week. It's not a lot of time. Listen to what happens, okay? Statistically, people who check out the Bible at least 4 times a week, 59% less likely to view pornography, 30% less likely to feel lonely, 400% more at peace, 500% more self-control, 500% more connected to God, 500% more likely to be a Dallas Cowboys fan. Just kidding. Obviously, that part's not true. But the rest is. Good things happen. Good things happen when you read the Bible. I know it's so cliche, the pastor saying read the Bible, but seriously, man, find a translation that's easy to read, that makes sense to you. It doesn't have to be Shakespearean English. Just find something that you understand and read it. It's awesome. Okay, 2 other things before we wrap up. One is this, and especially for those of you guys who are watching online, take advantage of the community part of church. Take advantage of the people around you. If you don't have friends here, there are a lot of friendly people. And I know you might have to extend a little bit to go out and shake some hands, but stick around a few minutes after church. Come on Wednesday nights for prayer at 6 or for our small group studies at 7. Join Celebrate Recovery and talk with people around a circle about how their life is and how your life is. It's amazing the power of peer pressure when you turn and use it for good. And especially if you're watching, especially if you live in Pekin, man, say, all right, next week, I'm going to set an alarm. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get dressed or whatever. I want to come and actually be in the church. I want to get some coffee and donuts and get an actual handshake or a hug from a living, breathing human being. Okay, what you're doing online is awesome. It is not wrong. I'm so glad that you make this part of your life, but you have no idea how much better it is when you pair good music and good preaching with good people. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's powerful. And last thing to write down is this, and this is for parents or for grandparents or for caretakers. This is so important. I want you to do this. Parents always, put this up on the screens, always tie rules and restrictions to values. Please try to do this. And I know you can't literally do it every time, but can I watch this show? No. Why not? Because it's rated R. Okay. Can I watch this show? No. Why not? Because this show is telling you that try before you buy is how you should handle sexuality. And that you can't help it if you're attracted to somebody, you need to have an affair on your spouse and go be with that person. This show is telling you that when somebody does you wrong, the best thing you can do is to buy a gun and go out and get revenge by killing them. This show is telling you that the people who really make it in life are the ones that step on others to have a lot of wealth and have a cool car. That's why I don't want you to watch it. Always tie them to values, and it'll be more effective. As we wrap up, I understand it takes effort, and it's not comfortable, and it's not fun. Okay, I try to keep things light and funny. This is not a fun, like, hey, you need to look at everything you're watching because some of it's bad and you should not watch it. I know how that sounds. Okay, I remember as a kid, movies that all of my friends had seen and they were talking about them, and I wanted to see them and I wasn't allowed to. I'm like, oh man. I remember toys that I wasn't allowed to have. Oh man. But I have to tell you, as an adult, there have been times where there were shows that we started to watch, and part of the way in we said, man, I don't think this is good. I think we need to stop. Oh man. Stinks. It stinks. But listen, if normal is toxic, if normal is killing you, then it's wise to be a little bit weird for your health, for your family's health. If normal is destroying you one sip at a time, it's smart to say, man, that tastes good, but if this is killing me, I'm going to find an alternative. And I'm not saying that you have to cut everything out of your life. You got to take a closer look. Now, let me make 2 absolute 100% Pastor Chris guarantees. The first one is, I 100% guarantee that if you actually take a look at the things that you're listening to and the things you're watching and the posts that you're reading on Facebook or on socials, I guarantee you will be frustrated with the results of your investigation. I guarantee you will find, okay, since I wrote these words down in my notes this week, a couple of times I'm rolling down the road, I'm listening to a song, I like this song, and I start listening closely to what the song is saying twice this week. And I said, skip. Because I'm beholden to this too. If you're a gamer I'm a video game guy. I'm a PC gamer, okay? Some of you guys didn't realize that nerds could dress this cool. Just kidding. I love games, right? PC gamer, I promise there's going to be a trending game that looks really cool. And if you actually say, wait, is this presenting good values? Is this building me up spiritually? If you're honest, you're going to say, no. Okay. I promise it will be frustrating. Guaranteed. But here's the other guarantee. I also 100% guarantee that you will be thrilled with the results of obedience. Because you will be healthier. And you won't be drinking stuff that's putting holes in the skull of your soul. Listen, man, I don't want to be, if normal is strung out on drugs and drinking to try to drink my problems away, if normal is depressed and cheating on the people that are closest to me and pushing people away, if normal is lonely and broke and depressed and unhappy, I don't want to be normal. I have to choose to accept a different definition of what normal is, and I can't get that from Netflix and Spotify and TikTok. I can only get that from the source of truth that God gave us. And that doesn't mean that I delete Netflix and TikTok and music. It just means that I'm listening and I'm taking that filter and I'm saying, is this good for me? If I do it for my kids, maybe I should do it for myself. This is good for me. So don't let the culture that you're immersed in tell you what normal is. Be picky. Be wise. Be a little bit weird, but be healthy. It's a better way to live. Hey, this is Pastor Chris again. Thanks for listening. If today's talk was helpful in your spiritual life, odds are there's someone you know who could benefit from it. Take a minute right now to share it with them. And if you live in the area, come try out a service in person, because church is more fun with friends. See you next time.